Manson is about transcending morality and sexuality. No boundaries, gray area. That's us.
Any accessories?
Accessories? These two girls are accessories.
So, Marylin, what's your favorite way to orgasm?
Anal sex, accompanied by erotic asphyxiation. I like the thrill of not knowing if they're gonna pass out or die.
I'm just totally at a loss for words. The assertions that they make are just utterly ridiculous.
They're just pulling shit out of thin air at this point.
There was a real worldwide wrestling feel to Manson. He looked provocative, and he said provocative things.
How many little boys and girls wanna fuck me now?
The hard question is discerning what is blustery rock star persona and what is hiding in plain sight.
He's got these two extreme sides. Marylin Manson is this, and Brian is the opposite.
He is the puppet master pulling the strings, manipulating everyone's relationship with each other.
I've always wanted to understand why he does what he does.
There were at least 3 different versions of him. I never really knew which one I was waking up to.
When you get in a band like that, it's going to be a test of your virtue. Where do you come down on how far you want to go out? Because you can go way out there.
Because of Marylin Manson's persona, anything is possible. If you're gonna date the Antichrist superstar, like, what do you think he is?
So this is just kind of a scrapbook. I've got a lot of stuff. I kind of kept everything. We've got a bunch of photos. There was a photo too that I really liked. It was this one. I really love that one. That's one of my favorite pictures of Brian. He just looks very, he's contemplating something, and I don't know, it looks more real to me. I mean, I liked the character, but the character was the character. You know, it was the person who was my friend. You know, it's funny because not having looked at these photos in a really long time, I definitely remember what it felt like to be there, but it's hard to remember. Well, actually, that's me. So I certainly should. I was right there. When I was 11, we moved to Florida, to South Florida. That was really difficult for me. Hated it at first, hated it. It was total culture shock. It's flat, it's hot, and it never changes, really. It was just really difficult to make friends. It was just very lonely for a while. And it wasn't maybe until about 8th grade that I really kind of found my niche.
3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to another edition of The Local Scene. We're here in Hollandale Beach, and this week we'll be reviewing the really progressive band Marylin Manson and the Spooky Kids. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey.
How you doing?
Hello.
How would you like your present and future audiences to perceive you?
I want them to take us seriously, but to have fun at the same time. Someday I want to grow up to be a rock star. So no one will pick on me anymore.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
I always loved music. That was always my thing. This was probably 1990. I believe I was 14. And I first heard of Marylin Manson on the radio.
I'm playing live over the radio. It was Cake and Sodomy, which is the song that kicked it off. Miami's own Marylin Manson and the Spooky Kids.
I remember saying to my mom, Marylin Manson has a song called Cake and Sodomy. Do you know what sodomy is? And she was like, yes. I didn't know what sodomy was. I just knew it was like some weird sex thing. I just liked how different they sounded. It really drew me in. They were really different than anything I'd ever heard, so I thought they were very interesting.
Fucking clock. When I first met Brian Warner
I was playing in a band called the Prom Sluts. And I met Brian at a place called the Reunion Room one night. He didn't introduce himself as Brian Warner. He introduced himself as Marylin Manson. I was kind of like, who the hell does this guy think he is? Yeah, right, Marylin Manson. But we both loved pop culture, so me and him hit it off pretty quick. South Florida had probably one of the best music scenes in the country. Great bands came from down here. The big deal was everybody's looking for a record deal, everybody wants to get signed. And that was what it was all about then. I personally gravitated more to punk rock. And with all due respect, I don't think Brian had reached his musical anything at that point. You go through his record collection, he had stuff like Queen and things like that. I was like, listen to the Stooges, listen to some old T-Rex, listen to Bowie. He liked Bowie, but, you know, he didn't know the good shit. And then all of a sudden, he knows all this stuff. I was like, yeah, I wonder where you pick that up from.
Four Roses. Oh, Bullet. Oh, Bullet is even better. Outstanding. Again, the siren's gonna be Brooklyn. My stage name was Madonna Wayne Gacy, and I played in Marylin Manson. A common friend of ours introduced us. She said, you really like this guy, he's weird like you. And so we just started talking. I think our first conversation was like the best way to commit suicide. That kind of shit. When the band was first forming, Brian kind of asked me, well, can you play keyboards? I'm like, I don't think so, but I can press buttons on time, you know? So I decided to go out and buy a sampler. And they started taking me to see local bands. And we'd sit down, I'm like, they're not that good. We could beat these guys. We would have a joke that we want to be bigger than the Beatles. And I remember a lot of people in the band didn't believe that because they'd been in multiple bands. Like, this is like my sixth band. I've seen it, never happens. No one gets out of Florida, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, we're gonna fucking do this. And that's one thing about Brian. He was very highly motivated.
There was lots of self-promotion out there. I'm Marylin Manson. Here's my flyer. My band's coming out. We're playing soon. He was a P.T. Barnum for 6 months before he took the stage. Let me go out there and do a little self-promotion. And it worked.
I had never gone to a concert without an adult. I believe it was in '91 when they played an all-ages show at the Button South, which was in Hallandale. We probably lied and said, you know, we're spending the night at each other's houses or something, and we went to the show. And I vividly remember what it felt like. It was fun, and they were all colorful, and they had toys on stage, but they were playing this dark music with these dark lyrics and this strange dichotomy of things, but I'd never seen anything like it.
It was like that love of lowbrow, shocking, kind of a little winking, little tongue-in-cheek. Is this a joke, or is this art, or am I serious, or am I not? They're like, no, I'm a happy clown. It's gonna rape your kid. You know, it's much scarier.
He would pour fake blood all over us and ruin our clothes, and it was like, that's fine, it's part of the thing, and that's what mattered the most, was being a part of this thing. And, you know, that feels a little crazy. We went to every single show we could possibly go to. After 30 shows, I never didn't feel those butterflies as they were coming out onto the stage.
But I bet you guys are saying, is it the last Marylin Manson show? Well, I'll tell you what's up. It's the last Marylin Manson and the Spooky Kid show. Because we're changing our name officially to Marylin Manson.
There was never any show, any day of the week was not packed. I mean, packed. The one thing I can honestly say about Brian, he had a lot of charisma.
Part of it was the music, part of it was the show, but for me, most of it was him. He was very charismatic, and he, you know, for me, I was drawn to that.
Everything's about getting attention. Let me go out and get some adoration from some fans. Girls carrying strawberry shortcake or Care Bear lunchboxes trying to get in. Somebody's sick for attention. They're gonna seek it, and they're gonna find it.
When we first met them, they carried lunchboxes. So we decided that it would be fun if we also carried lunchboxes. And so they started referring to us as the Lunchbox Girls. When I do watch these movies about Charles Manson and his family, it does strike a chord where these little adoring followers who are really looking up to you and nobody really understands why. He was always respectful. You know, I say respectful. One of my lunchboxes he signed and he wrote, "To Jen, you cum guzzling gutter slut, love Marylin." You know, at that level of maturity, I didn't recognize that as being inappropriate. You know, did I just miss all of this?
We're back here speaking with Marylin Manson. So what does the future hold for Marylin Manson?
We want to affect as many people as we can with our music. We want to develop our cult, make it stronger. We get people calling in all the time. Wackos, crazies, I love them all.
There was a Marylin Manson hotline. So I was with a friend and we were like, hey, let's call it, see what happens. We were just leaving a message. We talked for a little bit and then someone answered and said, "Hi, this is Marylin." We were so excited, like, oh, it's so cool we talked to Marylin, you know? It felt like, wow, this person wants to talk to me, and, you know, lots of people want to talk to them, but they want to talk to me. Like, that felt really good. After some time, he would call me at home. So we chatted quite a bit. A lot of times it was about music, but it was just about whatever. I mean, we would just chat like friends. I think it bothered my dad that clearly he was older. I mean, he was in his early 20s when I was 15 and 16. As a 16-year-old woman can absolutely carry on a conversation with a 23-year-old man. You know, there were strange things, like he had asked me for my high school picture, but nothing ever became of any of that. One night, my friends and I, the Lunchbox Girls, went into a graveyard and decided we'd do a little photo shoot for Marylin Manson. Not for like they asked us to, but just because we wanted to. So we took a bunch of very inappropriate photos with the Jesus statues. We've got some sex toys and we're in our bras and underwear and we're in our lunchboxes. You know, we called him Marylin for a long time, and then one day I said, I'm really tired of calling you Marylin. I feel like, you know, we're friends, and, you know, and so he said, well, just call me Daddy. So I did, and we all did, and yeah, and weird, right? But didn't really think too much of it, so. When I first started seeing them, they were just kind of starting to get there. And then they met Trent Reznor, they got signed, they started working on the album.
Is your mom and dad know that you came here to start a riot?
I was so excited to actually have them be big and have them tour with 9 Inch Nails, and just to get to say to people like, oh, I actually know them. You know, it was really cool, it was very exciting.
I look like a big rock star. So I need a big rock star dick.
The gimmick was so strong. We're talking the height of the serial killer stuff. You got Silence of the Lambs. So they latch onto that gig, and now all of a sudden they're like, whoa, that's some creepy shit. So they made some noise.
He was trying to get under people's skin, trying to make people angry. That was his persona. Part of his character. He was offensive.
We came from a scene in Florida where there was a big shock rock scene. It often became into almost a one-upmanship of who can do the most offensive shit. You know what I mean? There's so many things that we offended people with, it's hard to pick just one.
Do you guys like transport underage girls across state lines?
No, but we came real close to being arrested in Rochester, New York. Some of our band members had two 14-year-old runaways. And then at 6 in the morning, we heard, bam, 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 open up police. And it was the cops and their parents. And the dad was saying, it's right out of the, I don't care if you fuck the whole band, I just want my daughter back.
Did she fuck the whole band?
She didn't, no. Fact, which is a shame. But I was proud to be a part of such a scenario.
Now, is this why you got into the rock and roll racket?
It's just a front for a child pornography ring.
They are Marilyn Manson, and this is Midnight Blue and David Clark.
Crash and burn.
When you're in a band and you're going around and touring, you're like a group of pirates just moving from port to port.
Marilyn Manson is about transcending morality and sexuality. No boundaries, gray area.
When you get in a band like that, it's going to be a test of your virtue. Virtue untested is no virtue at all. Where do you come down on how far you want to go out? Because you can go way out there. If people want to have sex with whom they want, I think that they should be able to. As long as the people are willing participants. Share with minors, a different story. Brains aren't developed, blah, blah, blah. But that's a legal problem.
And I've got some cutouts from newspapers. Like this one was a negative review of Marilyn Manson, calling them disgusting. And this person's article said these bands should not be promoting bizarre sex acts. Marilyn Manson's the sickest band I've ever seen live, and et cetera, et cetera. My friend Kim actually wrote back and just said, if she thinks that Marilyn Manson are a disgusting band, then she shouldn't go to their shows. That pretty much summarizes the way that we felt. You know, we didn't feel that they were actually out there to harm anyone. She goes on to say, I can't understand why this obsession with sex, normal or otherwise, could bother anybody. It's not as if they dragged their fans into dark corners and brutally raped them.
Wow, I'm shaking a lot more than I thought I would.
I'm sick and tired of hearing about all of the radicals and the perverts and the liberals and the leftists and the communists coming out of the closets. It's time for God's people to come out of the closets, out of the churches, and change America. We must do it.
I was very sheltered when I grew up. Much more sheltered than children are now, I think. And my grandfather was a very devout Christian. When I was growing up in Texas, Christianity was everywhere. It was so conservative. We had so many televangelists.
We think young people need to carefully examine some of the rock and roll stars they listen to every day. We want you to go from the rock that breaks you to the rock that makes you. And of course, that name of that rock is Jesus Christ.
I don't really think about my childhood much. My parents divorced when I was 8 years old. And then my father was out of my life. It was so painful. I didn't have anyone to talk to because I didn't have my father. You know, my mother worked all the time. I didn't want to look weak or vulnerable or anything like that because that's what I was taught. You don't cry, you don't talk about your feelings. You just suck it up and you pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you just go. I just would almost fanatically devote myself to school. Well, I would have a panic attack if I thought I was going to miss school. Probably because I was lonely and I didn't have any kind of outlet. I was so desperate to belong to something.
Well, here they are, Marilyn Manson, Twiggy Ramirez, and Madonna Wayne Gacy. Marilyn Manson is the lead singer in the band. You're Marilyn Manson because?
Marilyn Monroe and Charles Manson were the two most memorable people from the 60s. And I thought that dichotomy of positive and negative, putting those two names together, represented what I had to say and what I was about.
The way he presented himself, I thought it was provocative. I'd never seen anyone that didn't really give a fuck about what people thought of him.
Parents raise their kids to grow up feeling guilty and ashamed for not being like them with Christian morality. And these kids need a way to react against it. You're gonna have a bunch of angry kids.
I thought he made articulate, poignant points about some of the hypocrisies in religion. It was intoxicating in a sense. I didn't really think it was anything dangerous at all. My 16th birthday present to myself was to get tickets to see him perform live. It was exciting because it was a small, small club.
I said, God damn. I said, God damn.
It was the first time I'd been to a concert without my parents. And I remember I positioned myself very carefully because I didn't want to be too close to the stage because the men get violent.
I am a motherfucker, child fucker, cocksucker. Hallelujah, motherfucker!
It was exciting. There's an energy in the crowd. The way he moved on stage, and it felt cool because my parents don't understand it. They don't like it. They had just parked their bus. Literally, it was parked outside of the venue. And I saw other people that were at the concert. They lined up. They looked young. Everybody looked young. I had my school backpack with me and a piece of notebook paper. I had the whole band sign my little notebook paper. I went back on the bus. Jordy White was with Manson, Ray Warner, and they asked a lot of questions, especially Brian. He obviously knew I was in school because he asked what grade I was in. He told me he would send merchandise, t-shirts and things like that, if I gave him my mailing address and my phone number, and I did. I have to take a break for a second. I'm sorry, just let me collect my thoughts. It just seems like he was interested in talking to me. And I felt flattered that he was paying attention to me, and I couldn't believe it, you know. And kissed me. And it was a little scary and, you know, exciting kind of at the time, and that's embarrassing to say, but, and he wanted me to perform oral sex on him. And to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. He just went even further, and before I even knew it, he was just, I mean, I went on the bus as a virgin, and I'm so ashamed of that, you know. I just have so much shame about that. I feel so stupid. I think that's the worst part is I feel so damn stupid, you know?
She never had access to a tour bus. This just didn't happen. And how do I know it didn't happen? I have declarations from witnesses who were there at the time, credible witnesses, who say that her allegations are impossible.
Murderer Charles Manson has been denied parole by the state of California. Meanwhile, the man who has taken Charles Manson's name is at the center of controversy again here on the coast. Local preachers don't want shock rocker Marylin Manson to rendezvous with his audience at the Coast Coliseum.
They hold no signs and wave no posters, but some of them carry a Bible. These protesters on the sidewalk outside the Coast Coliseum say they're using prayer to spread their message.
He loved when they got bigger. I mean, that was a dream for him. He wanted to piss a lot of people off, but also have a big following.
Why do you want to serve the devil? Jesus will look you in the eyes and say, it's too late.
He wanted to be a hero, but a villain at the same time.
Absolutely repulsive. I wouldn't let my children go to see it. I don't know why anybody else would want their children to see it.
They assumed that we were satanic child molesters or something. We kind of made ourselves a target deliberately, you know, by trying to be like, oh, we're the perverters of youth.
I want you with a passion. I will do anything for you, anything.
I want Twiggy. I want Twiggy. I want Twiggy. I want to look up a skirt. Pretty. I want to rape Twiggy.
When they have these prayer vigils circling your venue with candles and they're all praying for your soul, like, that's sweet of them. If they want to do it, that's cool. It's our free speech is their free speech. They can come and protest me. I can say I don't give a shit. Talk good about me, talk bad about me, just talk about me. You know, if you can't be famous, be infamous. It's still good.
Remember when you phoned me, Manson? I love you, and you have to phone me again. I've been waiting for so long, for like 3 months, so you have to phone me.
You're manifesting all this power that you didn't have in the past. What worries me is what you want to do with it. And I don't know what it is, but there's something about it that bothers me. That worries me. That worries me. He had my phone number because he had asked for it. And he knew that my mother worked at night because I told him. She was a line mechanic. She just worked all the time. She would go to work about 10 o'clock at night. So he knew the times to call. If the phone was ringing after hours like that, I knew it was gonna be him. Since I didn't really have anybody at home really to talk to or any friends really, in my little teenage mind, I felt like I was being heard. He was actually talking to me and listening to me. But as time went on, he was wanting photographs. But he would want it in front of posters of him or pictures of him, things from his magazines. Actually, he liked Polaroids, I remember that.
Brian has never communicated with this alleged victim other than the very real possibility that she attended a meet and greet No phone calls, well, we didn't have text messages, no emails, no letters, no AOL chats. Did not happen.
There's a lot of sticky 8th grade pussies out there. Send some of those little 8th grader girls up here. So yeah, a whole arm inside them.
Not having looked at these photos in a really long time, there are things that didn't strike me then that really strike me now. There's kind of pulling down his pants, getting ready to take a Polaroid. That's a pretty frequent occurrence. That was what he would hand out. I mean, I don't know that I had ever seen a penis in real life before. I don't know, I was very young. It looks like here he has cunt written on his side. One show, they had a bed on stage. It was Brian's girlfriend at the time under the sheets. And they were doing like simulated sex acts, which I have some photos of there. At least I hope they were simulated.
Well, he always had some type of girlfriend or groupie, but girls were exploitation. Girls were meant to be used as objects, things. I've seen him not be very kind to girls. Maybe some girl comes up, wants an autograph. And there was a lot of fat girl, ugly girl. He was somebody that was superficial and would pick somebody apart. I'm not trying to sound like the sweetest guy in the world, but it was wrong.
There are things that just, I find very questionable. And at the time, I didn't know enough to think that. I guess what I'm saying is there are messages that I didn't realize were messages. Things that I just didn't even pick up on that were part of it that I wonder if other people did or not.
Check 1, 2, 3.
If you look at nature, a snake doesn't apologize for being a snake. He doesn't look for forgiveness for the way he behaves. Well, I've always wanted to be a rock star. So I'm gonna accept that role and enjoy it for what it is. And not really feel bad about it.
Do you practice backstage debauchery? And have you some really impressive stories about that subject?
The only impressive ones would get me arrested if I mentioned them, so I can't really comment.
He became successful right after the moment I met him. I saw him come up from this level of success to this level, like all the way up. So he's successful in the world, and I admired that.
Who is this guy anyway?
He's just part of my entourage.
I thought, if that many people like him, and for me to have that attention from him, it did make me feel special. And it's embarrassing and sad to say that, but it really did.
I was a junior editor at the time. Even if you don't know who Marylin Manson is, this is just a striking image. Who is this person? Sort of does everything that you want a magazine cover to do. One thing about Manson is that he came in fully formed with these quotes ready to go about himself. I was never afraid of what was under the bed. I wanted it, and I never got it. I just became it. You can see the appeal if you're a magazine editor. Manson uses a number of different metaphors to describe himself. A snake, an angel, an alien, the child snatcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is really creepy in hindsight. Manson was very aware that this was a really important piece for him. From a transactional perspective, he appealed to the media This was someone who was trying to be offensive, and Manson actually benefited from music journalists not taking him seriously. And so Rolling Stone helped communicate his narrative. I think it's understandable how he covered Manson at the time, but I think everybody who was part of that apparatus needs to look at the choices they made.
Please welcome to the Much Environment a return visit. Marilyn Manson's been twice. Latest album, Mechanical Animals. The ongoing chapter in the life of Marilyn Manson. Obviously a new look. Is that a conscious effort?
With my personality, I feel the need to grow. I get bored easy.
He lost contact with a lot of people, and people that were very close to him. I say lost contact, but you know, as far as they're concerned, he stopped having contact with them. And people were really upset and really angry and really offended. I think I just chose to not be. I didn't want it to be like, oh, he doesn't really care. I didn't want to accept that. So I just told myself and everyone else, like, well, his life is so different now.
Jesus Christ was the first rock star. He had his shirt off, drinking wine, he had prostitutes. Yeah. So I identify with him most now.
I went to one show and I kind of hated it. I just felt like it had changed. I felt like a lot of what I thought was fun was gone. It just seemed very angry. It just seemed different to me. The crowd was so rowdy and they were so angry and they're there just like worshiping. It felt very worshipy. And are they getting the message wrong? Was a little bit scary. And I thought, this isn't a crowd that I actually feel good about being a part of.
We are going to wear booty shorts with stars on our snatches.
In 1999, I was a 19-year-old, and the best thing that I took from that entire experience was all the kids that I met.
It's on still. I know. What do you want to know about me? I'll tell you anything.
Especially girls, like a lot of girls
What do you want to know?
that were from broken homes, girls that, you know, were troubled. But we had sort of a kinship.
You're big too. I know. The better to meet you with. What was that little Red Riding Hood? Really? Grandma, what big teeth you have.
That was so important to know that maybe you don't see people like yourself in the town or city that you grew up in, but these people existed and they knew how life can be painful at times. There were times when he would come to the hotel room I was staying in, and during the day, you know, just get high and drink and just sit around.
Oh, yeah, baby. Up close and personal.
Validation from him became really important to me because it was something he would give and take at his own leisure. When he was degrading, it made me feel like the smallest person in the world. It was such a sick environment. It was so disturbing.
He never met the girl, never had sex with the girl. It's completely fabricated. It didn't happen.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by saying that we all know there has been a terrible shooting at a high school in Littleton, Colorado.
Jefferson County 911. I'm a teacher at Columbine High School. There was a student here with a gun. And I'm in the library. I've got students down under the table, kids. Heads under the table.
People who recognized the students say that they were members of the Trenchcoat Gang, a group of what you might call outcasts at the school, people who listened to Marilyn Manson music dressed in an alternative sort of fashion.
Marilyn Manson's music contains what some call a violent message and what some say is partly to blame for the Columbine High School shooting.
I don't really see how that had anything to do with this, except there are people who like your music. I mean, I imagine there's people who love Elvis Presley and fucking committed murder. I can think of a million other things that had more to do with like running to a building and shooting people. We never promoted killing random people or, you know, doing silly things like that. Like, how is that going to help anybody? We're more about having fun. At first, it wasn't that bad. But then later on, our tour got canceled. No more dates. Nothing, yeah.
This is an issue from 1999 that contains an editorial from Marilyn Manson talking about Columbine. He had taken a lot of flack after it, and it sort of fed this feeling for him that, you know, the world was out to get him, you know, because they sort of were. So he wrote this essay, which got a lot of attention. When it comes down to who's to blame for the high school murders in Littleton, throw a rock and you'll hit someone who's guilty. I was dumbfounded as I watched the media snake right in, interviewing the parents of dead children, televising the funerals. Then came the witch hunt. A scapegoat was needed. I remember hearing the initial reports from Littleton that Harris and Klebold were wearing makeup and were dressed like Marilyn Manson, whom they obviously must worship, since they were dressed in black. He did a pretty reasonable defense of artistic freedom, but there's stretches in here where it kind of feels like he's making it about him. It also fed some of his messianic impulses, I think, and some of his megalomania.
The way the media treated me, it was a hard point in my life because it seemed as if the whole world was trying to destroy me. And the support of the fans was the only support I had when I was being kicked down, so that's not something I'm gonna ever forget. So I love them, all of you.
Columbine legitimately hurt his career, but also got him a lot more attention. You know, and it gave him a cultural importance that he didn't have.
Are you a survivor?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a fighter. And you have to really destroy everything you've become and resurrect yourself as something new.
He was able to position himself as a free speech warrior in a way that a lot of progressive and liberal folks in the media were very amenable to. Becoming a spokesperson actually played to some of his strengths. He navigated that in a pretty savvy manner.
Shall we go to the Much Music front porch and say hi to all the fans?
I really missed him for a long time. I think about him and be like, oh man, I wish I could talk to him. There were times 10 years ago when he'd do a meet and greet on tour and I'd think, ugh, should I? I know he would know who I was, but what if he just didn't care? That's a possibility. I don't know, you know, and that would hurt.
There is no difference between Marilyn Manson and Brian Warner. They are the same people. He's been able to manipulate everyone. You know, he knows when to charm and when to harm. He knows exactly what he's doing.
To the best of my knowledge, Brian did not do things with minors. You know, he was very aware of that. In fact, our tour manager, on the corner of our daily sheets, he would write the, you know, age of consent for each city in each state, because every place is different. So that way the band knew, do not fuck with shit below that. Here's your line. I never saw him mess with that line.
Speedy? We're speeding on both cameras.
I just couldn't believe that he would do something like that. I felt so fucking violated.
There was a moment of, do I just let this happen? Do I not fight back?
The most dangerous people are women. If you let them be.
There's such a disconnect between the really horrible things that I'm hearing about him doing and everything I saw and experienced for myself. It just feels so shocking.